Picture this: a Galactic Council chamber filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds, crystalline beings that process thoughts at light speed, hive minds spanning entire star systems, ancient civilizations that have conquered death itself. And then, humans arrive. A galaxy laughed. How could they not? These fragile creatures needed specific atmospheric conditions just to breathe. Their bodies broke from simple falls. They lived barely a century, a cosmic blink. The Galactic Council granted humanity a small mining colony on the edge of civilized space. The way you might humor a child, no one took them seriously. No one suspected what was really happening. By the time the truth came out, it was already too late. This is the story of how the galaxy's greatest mistake became its last. Chapter 1. First Contact, 045 to 30. The year was 2247 by human reckoning, when the Valorian Empire made first contact with Earth. Ambassador Krelfor descended from his vessel expecting primitives. What he found were skyscrapers touching the clouds, fusion reactors, quantum computers. Impressive for such a young species, he admitted. But nothing the galaxy hadn't seen 1,000 times before. The initial assessments were dismissive. Humans had no natural armor, like the Korgothai. No psychic abilities, like the Meridians. No extended lifespans, like the Eternal Ones. Their technology was centuries behind the leading civilizations. Most damning of all, they fought amongst themselves. Even as they stood on the edge of joining a galactic community, humans were divided into competing nations, religions, ideologies. The Valorian report was clear. Humanity poses no threat to galactic stability. Recommend standard integration protocols. Monitor for cultural development. Expected time to galactic relevance, 500 to 1,000 standard years. They granted Earth 1 seat on the Outer Council, the galactic equivalent of a participation trophy. What the Valorians didn't understand was that they'd just made the galaxy's first critical error. You see, every advanced species in the galaxy had evolved on peaceful worlds. Abundant resources, mild climates, few predators. They developed intelligence as a tool for cooperation and optimization. Earth was a death world. A planet where 70% of surface was toxic to most galactic species, where the atmosphere contained oxygen, a highly corrosive gas that most species considered an industrial hazard, where tectonic plates constantly shifted, causing catastrophic earthquakes, where weather patterns could generate winds that tore buildings apart. And the life? God, the life. Earth was packed with predators that had evolved for millions of years in an arms race of survival. Creatures that could detect electrical fields, that could see in wavelengths humans couldn't, that could inject venom capable of killing in minutes. Humans, they weren't apex predators by accident. They were pursuit predators, the kind that would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had evolved to throw projectiles with terrifying accuracy. They could survive injuries that would kill most species outright, their bodies pumping adrenaline to keep fighting even when mortally wounded. But the galaxy didn't study human evolution closely enough. They saw the suits humans wore in space stations and assumed they were fragile. They saw humans negotiating peacefully and assumed they were docile. They made their second mistake when the Kresh Dominion attacked the human mining colony on Kepler 442b. Chapter 3. The Kepler Incident 530-8. The Kresh Dominion didn't expect resistance. Why would they? The mining colony had 300 human workers, no trained soldiers, no military installations, just miners, engineers, families. The Kresh sent 2 battlecruisers, standard intimidation tactics. They demanded the humans abandon the colony within 24 hours. The human response came in 23 hours. When the Kresh ships entered orbit to begin bombardment, something impossible happened. The mining equipment, drills, explosives, cargo ships had been weaponized overnight. The humans had turned their entire colony into a fortress. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was the message transmitted across all galactic frequencies. You have threatened our children. There will be no mercy. There will be no negotiation. There will be no quarter given. We are humans. We remember everything. We forgive nothing. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Kresh, who had conquered 17 star systems, who had never lost a military engagement, were routed by 300 miners using improvised weapons. When Galactic Council investigators arrived, they found the 2 Kresh battlecruisers disabled but intact. The Kresh warriors were alive, barely, restrained and awaiting trial. The humans had fought with a precision and ferocity the galaxy had never witnessed. They had adapted to combat situations in real time, learning Kresh tactics mid-battle. They had coordinated without any command structure, operating on something they called initiative. And they had shown mercy only after victory was absolute. The galaxy started paying attention. Chapter 4, the pattern emerges, 8 o'clock to 10:30. Over the next 50 years, a terrifying pattern emerged. Humans didn't just join the galactic community, they transformed it. In medicine, human doctors made breakthroughs that had eluded species with thousands of years more development. Why? Because they were used to working with bodies that broke easily. They had millennia of experience with trauma surgery, epidemic response, genetic disorders. In engineering, humans designed ships that could survive conditions no other species had considered. Ships that could be repaired with minimal tools. Ships designed assuming things would go wrong. In diplomacy, humans brokered peace deals that had seemed impossible. They understood conflict in a way other species didn't, because they had been doing it to each other for their entire history. But military strategists across the galaxy noticed something else. Humans didn't train for war like other species. Other species trained for specific scenarios, optimized responses, developed doctrine. Humans trained by creating chaos and learning to function within it. They called it stress inoculation. They deliberately put themselves in situations where everything went wrong, where plans failed, where they had to adapt or die. Every human child learned history filled with wars, betrayals, disasters, and survivals. They grew up on stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things under pressure. The Zothic Collective tried to manipulate humans politically, the way they had controlled dozens of other species. They found humans were immune to most psychological warfare, not because they were stronger, but because they'd been doing it to each other for millennia. Every propaganda technique, every manipulation tactic, humans had already tried it on themselves. The Meridian hive mind attempted to assimilate human consciousness. They discovered that human individuality wasn't a weakness. It was a feature. Humans could coordinate like a hive when needed, but think independently when required. The Meridians couldn't process such contradictory behavior. And when the Krillian swarm invaded human space, expecting easy conquest, they learned why predator species don't survive first contact with humans. No hesitation, no mercy. They simply consumed and moved on. When they reached human territory, they expected the same. Instead, they found something that terrified them: Humans fought like the swarm, but with creativity the swarm couldn't match. Humans developed bioweapons specifically targeting Krillian biology within weeks. They used the swarm's own communication against them, feeding false information through captured nodes. They didn't just fight the swarm, they turned it against itself. But here's what really shocked the galaxy. Humans won that war not through superior firepower or technology. They won through something no other species possessed in such abundance: spite. When the swarm destroyed human colonies, humans didn't retreat. They attacked harder. When the swarm adapted to human tactics, humans adapted faster. When victory seemed impossible, humans fought anyway. There's a human saying the galaxy learned during that war. Humans will pack bond with anything. But if you threaten what they've bonded with, they become the thing you should fear most in the universe. The swarm retreated after 3 years, the first time in their million-year history they had ever withdrawn. So here's the truth the galaxy learned too late. Humans weren't weak because they broke easily. They were strong because they learned to survive anyway. They weren't foolish because they felt emotions. Their emotions made them unpredictable, creative, dangerous. They weren't divided because they were primitive. They were diverse because they valued individual thought over collective conformity. The galaxy looked at humans and saw fragile bodies, short lifespans, violent histories. They saw weakness. They should have seen survivors. They should have seen a species that crawled out of a death world, that turned disaster into innovation, that made art about tragedy and jokes about death. They should have recognized that a species doesn't survive on a planet like Earth by being weak. By the time the Galactic Council offered humanity a seat on the High Council, the first species to achieve that honor in under a century, it wasn't charity. It was acknowledgement of reality. Earth wasn't on the edge of civilized space anymore. Where humans went, the edge of civilization followed. The weak human species? The galaxy learned too late. There's no such thing.